And we're good.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Weekly Word. Today is Thursday, October 3rd. I'm Morgan West.
And I'm Rich Parla. And today we are welcoming our very special guest, David O'Miller. David, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Rich. Morgan, how are you doing?
Hi,
Thanks for
David.
having me on.
And we're so glad you're joining us.
As you can tell, I'm an old guy. Started gaming back in
It's the hat.
1822, I believe it was. Now,
Wow.
1977, I was at a college in Richmond, Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky originally. And there was a guy running a free university class, and it was Dungeons and Dragons. And so,
Wow.
being the geek that I was, I decided, well, let's see what this is all about. So that was back when it was the white box. I think it came out in '74.
Wow.
It was in the brown box, and so he had these little white box with the different books in it. We gamed that for about a year, and long story short, I got hooked.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Shortly after that, we branched off into some other games like RuneQuest and Steve Jackson's old fantasy trip game. Traveler was out. It became like a renaissance of games.
I love Traveler.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah, and so so I was a gamer before I was an artist. I mean, I was always drawing, but I said, what the heck? Let me start submitting some stuff to some game companies. GenCon came along. It was up in Milwaukee. I think first year was '85. I went, started showing my work. Before you know it, people took notice, and I started working for TSR, Game Designer Workshop. I worked for a little bit for Chaosium. I worked for just about every company in the RPG network, all through from about 88, 89 up until about 96 or so.
Yes.
So that's how I kind of got involved in the art side of things. After Magic cards came and sort of changed the whole face of the industry, I unfortunately had to sort of slip away from it. I had just recently gotten married, and we had a young child coming along, so I went back into advertising. I had cut my teeth in advertising, so I had to unfortunately follow where the money was. But I still work for a lot of independent game companies to this day, more as a hobby. During the '80s and '90s, I did it as a business. So that's a little bit about myself.
Hey, Morgan, where were you in '77?
I was a figment of my mother's imagination.
Wow.
You got a twinkle in your dad's eye.
Oh, yeah.
I told you I was born in 1877.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
I have played I've played most of the games. Did I play RuneQuest? I'm not sure I'm not 100% sure I played RuneQuest, but I have played some of the other games throughout the years. In '77, I was starting kindergarten. Sorry, David.
It's all right.
So, David, you said that Magic cards changed the name of the game. How so?
I had spent, and not to dwell on that too much, but I had started in '85 and spent a good 10 years or so developing a lot of clients. I mean, one of the things I tell young artists is the first thing you're a business person. The business is art. You're a business of art.
Right.
So you kind of have to network. You have to establish clients. I mean, I worked for White Wolf magazine. I worked for just so many companies. And then, of course, with Magic, if you know the history of all that, so much money got poured into that a lot of companies started suffering. GDW went out of business. That took Traveler, Space 1889. I had done work for all of those. Twilight 2000. So one by one, I saw a lot of my clients sort of just slip away, and that source of income dried up. I had actually been asked to do Magic cards at the time. I was working on a Spelljammer project for TSR, which never saw print. Believe it or not, it was like 100 cards. And I said no to Magic and said yes to TSR. Obviously, TSR was my larger client at the time. I had never heard of Wizards of the Coast. No one really had. And so I guess I chose poorly. Chose poorly. No, it was okay. It was okay. But that's how the industry changed.
Okay, that's a shame.
Yes.
You needed to be changed. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And to think, Magic, the card game, if I'm not mistaken, was really only invented so that Wizards of the Coast could create their own RPG.
Yeah, I don't know the history of that. A lot
That's
of my friends at GenCon
Yeah.
during that time said yes to it. Jeff Mingus, Mark Poole, several of us. I think Dan Fraser, who was always going, and and so they did original Magic cards, and
Yeah.
good for them. And it was a great boon for them. And I'm very happy for all of them.
Yeah, no, of course. No, that's great. David
Oh.
can talk about all of this stuff. Can talk us all under the table about most of what we talk
Wow,
about.
I have
Well,
no-
I'm from
I have no
Kentucky,
doubt.
originally rich, and that's what we do.
But
But I'm a very modest person. I don't like to do name dropping that much. But I was there, not in the very, very beginning. It came out in '74 in limited quantities. But I started playing in '77, and then I got involved professionally in around '85. So between '85 and '95, I was a freelancer. A lot of artists, like Larry Elmore, Keith Parkinson, they worked for TSR. I worked for TSR as well as all these other companies that were at GenCon. So
Right.
I got to know, the CEOs of these companies. I got to know the art directors quite well. Made lifelong friends. So to say I was there in those golden years, and I was in a position to really see the industry was
Right.
amazing to me.
Yeah, that is really cool.
And I treasure those like 10, 11 years that I worked in the industry quite a bit. I hit around 2.5, was the second edition revised, they call it.
Yeah.
So you'll see Emrakul the Chaotic back here was a re-imaging of David Trampler's original first edition drawing of Emrakul the Chaotic. I think the Gith Yank here, Spells and Magic, that was '95, second edition revised.
Yes.
Did a lot of Spelljammer. I had worked for U.S. Space Camp. I don't know if you're familiar, in Huntsville, Alabama. I was the senior art director there. Did a lot of work. I did some work for NASA. I did some work for the camp. The Space and Rocket Center was the second largest space museum in the country outside of the Smithsonian. So I was sort of a good fit to do Spelljammer because of all the space artwork that I had done. So you see,
Cool.
this is the cover for Ostermundi Cluster over here.
I love Spelljammer, by the way. I just gotta point that out because now that I know I was saying it before the show, but I got all the books of Spelljammer and all the box sets, and they just kept coming out with box sets, and I love.
I know. I did the cover. I think I did 4 or 5 covers for them.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
Towards the later run.
That's how
a lot of interior work.
That's how I first really heard of you and your name.
Through Spelljammer.
Yeah, it was with Spelljammer. Yes.
I don't. Did you ever play Space 1889 at all? That had a similar feel to it.
No, I did not. Basically,
Jules Verne, H.G. Wells in space.
Yeah, no, I didn't. During the night, I'm gonna have to say it was around the '90s. Yeah, during the '90s, right before the 2000s, late '90s. I do remember my friend Steve and Charlie and we sat down and we made characters for every single board, every single RPG that's out there, but never played any of them.
That's cool. What a fun adventure that must have been.
It was kind of fun. I would do it again. But I would only do it. I would only do it again with Steve and Charlie because part of the fun was actually the going back and forth of trying to figure out how to make characters for each of these systems. I still remember Steve. Oh my God! Why can't I think of the name of what was it? Dangerous Journeys. Gary's second attempt at an RPG.
And I did artwork for that.
Yeah, and I remember Steve. He read through the character creation, and then he looks at the book, slams it shut, puts it on the shelf, said, "We're not doing it." He said, "We're not doing it." He's like, "Don't pick it up. We're not doing it."
I think they paid me in copies of that game.
Oh man, it was so overly complex.
Do you want to talk about GenCon back in the day?
I do. As a matter of fact, let's we do try to do a script once in a while.
Every once in a while.
So let me introduce.
Go off script.
Yeah, that's okay. We are off script all the time, David. All right, so here's the topic: GenCon in the '90s, the art show and the changes. David was a huge part of the fantasy artwork genre over the course of history. You've already said all this, that you were introduced to role playing games such as D&D, RuneQuest, and many others in 1977. Shortly afterwards, you began freelancing as a fantasy illustrator. For a while, you also worked as the art director for the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. See, I did know that, but I did, and I am familiar with the place, but I did not know that you were the art director. That's awesome. But
that was fun. That
you,
was fun. I mean, my childhood heroes were not basketball players or football players. They were the people that walked on the moon.
Sure.
That during that position, a lot of people, astronauts, would come into the camp and do photo ops with the children that was at camp. And it was my job to hire the photographer and go out and shoot those pictures.
Wow.
So I met several of the people that walked on the moon several times, and just I've always tell young people. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, and because of my art and getting out there and networking, my art took me places I never dreamed of. And I feel like I was very, very fortunate to be in those kind of situations where I met people like that.
Yes.
I always encourage young people to follow their dreams. As far as if you draw, go and see where it takes you.
Yep.
And don't let people say no. I mean, stop listening to people who say no and just say yes yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and so I was very fortunate in that particular case, and know that I was. So it's not everybody that can, and talk to people. I can just talk to them like normal people, but I mean, they had the right stuff. So that was kind of cool. GenCon in the 80s, I mean, we're Mecca, right? You know what Mecca stood for? You never went to the Milwaukee cons, did you?
No. As a matter of fact, I only started going to Gen Con about 10 years ago.
About 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was I have to read it myself, the Milwaukee Exposition and Convention Center and Arena.
Wow.
And Milwaukee was a great town. So I think they were there from 85 to 95 once Peter Atkinson bought Gen Con, and they moved it to Indianapolis. So it was like, changing quite a bit. But the numbers were kind of low. I was looking this up this afternoon. I mean, 18,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people. I mean, the numbers were going up and up and up. But they were not the numbers that Gen Con is these days.
No, 65.
So a much smaller venue. So, the show would be, normally we would get in on a Wednesday to set up. And if you've been to Gen Con, I know you have, Rich, before they set up, it's all, trucks coming in and hand carts and all that. That's all very similar to what you have now in Indianapolis. So we'd set up the art show. The art show was always in the dealer's room.
Right.
And then we'd had nothing to do. So we'd all go out. And so we were, most of us were single. And if we were married, the wives weren't interested, so they stayed back. And there was a restaurant bar called the Safe House. And I think the legend of the Safe House. It was a James Bond themed restaurant. And to get in it, you had to go into a room filled with bookcases, and you had a girl would say, what's the password?
Speakeasy.
Password. Then you had to perform tricks like stand on one foot and touch your nose and do all this kind of stuff. And then they would open up the bookcase and let you in, and then everyone in the bar would clap because you were in closed circuit TV.
Oh, that's so funny.
That is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
The password, by the way, I can't tell you because, then I can be shocked. Still to this day. But the bar was filled with stuff like that. One of the ways you could get out was to go into a phone booth, put a quarter in it. The phone booth would turn around and a door would open out into the back alley.
Wow.
It was like spy stuff.
That's real
cool.
There
was a set of stairs that went up to a balcony that overlooked the bar, and that's where we took over. So Let's go through some names. We're talking the big four that TSR had. This was Larry Elmore, Keith Parkinson, Clyde Codwell, and Jeff Easley.
Yes.
Larry was married with his two kids. Knew him quite well back in the day. Still good friends with Larry. And he couldn't stay out late because his wife would, kill him. So he'd stay for a while, then he'd leave. I'm not going to tell any stories on people, just the good ones. No, there were no bad. But you had all the freelancers there as well. And it's a long list of people that work not only for TSR, but all the other groups.
Yes.
Lifelong friends. And those were just amazing times. We would drink, of course, but we would talk shop and talk art. And there was always when Gary Gygax was ousted back in '85, that was the big discussion that was going on. So
Yeah.
we were kind of privy to inside information from some of the employees.
I remember
So then,
not too long. You remember Chris, right? You know Chris, right? Our
Chris, yeah,
so he not a few years ago was GenCon was over the time of Larry Elmore's birthday,
okay,
and I remember I remember Chris went out, and I think they were out most of the night. That's all I'll say. I don't remember anything else.
Interesting.
yeah. Well, these kids are grown.
So
So the booths were U-shaped, all right? It was a U shape like this. And so there were 2 tables here, 2 tables here, and 2 tables here. Then you went around to the corner, and there were 2 tables there. And 2. So a bunch of us would get there early and rush in, and which U shape do you want? Because we were all friends. So we'd all grab a section. And so people like Bob Jadrosich, Chris Appel, Mark Poole, Jeff Mingus, Christina Wald, Kevin Ward. I don't know if some of these names ring a bell with you.
I'm familiar with a lot of them.
Get there because we're going to spend the next 4 days together.
Yes.
And after a while, we'd start throwing paper wads at each other. I think Tim Bradstreet and Steve Bryant from GDW were in the booth behind me, and we would throw paper wads up and over the wall, and then they'd throw them back, and then we'd just get a whole bunch of, get like 20 of these things and go whoosh over
really
the wall,
funny.
and then this one giant ball would come back, they'd ram them all together. It's because we were bored. You're sitting there, you know what it's like to sit in a booth at GenCon.
I do.
You're chained to the booth. So some funny stories I can tell you, and this was the days when people would come up and want to do character sketches. Do you do character sketches? So you're sitting at your booth with all of your art laid out on the table, and some guy would come along with a giant backpack and plop right on front of the top of your artwork. Like, oh, please. You do character sketches, So if you said yes to a character sketch, it'd be like $10, but you just allowed yourself to listen to this person for the next 20 minutes describe his character in excruciating detail. And you're like, oh, no, I'll just draw you an elf and we'll put a sword and we're good. So it got to the point where we were all saying, no, I'm not doing character sketches.
Yeah.
But you see that guy over there? And I'd point at Larry Elmore.
Oh, my goodness.
Character sketches.
Oh, my God.
So these all go over to Larry. And then Larry turned around and he'd like, stop doing that.
Wow.
And,
That's
it was
so
just
funny.
a great, fun time. And we'd all laugh about it later. But sending character sketches to Larry.
That's wild.
It's you're right. I mean, one of the things, like, it's obviously it's different, but it's similar today.
So how is it different? I'm curious.
So it's different in that it's the camaraderie is slightly different. There's a lot more clicks now, but you still, like, the first couple of years I went to GenCon, there wasn't really much. The first time I went there, I went to run games, not as a vendor. And it was like this great city and the players. When I became, the couple of years that we became a vendor, we found out that, to what David is saying, the vendor side of things is nothing like the player experience. It's so completely on the other side of the spectrum. In
a positive or a negative way?
Oh, I think it's in a positive way, but there was a lot more. I found that the vendors, without giving away too much, partied a lot more. I mean, they really do. That vendor room closes, boom. They were somewhere. Not going out there and playing games. Yes, they did play games, but they weren't going out there to play. They were going out there to party. And it was a different type of...
White Wolf parties from back in the day.
Yeah. And, and it hasn't changed. It's different in that there's just a lot of different clicks now.
It's gotten bigger. I mean, these cons had 18,000 people. That was a big number for them. So I think that's changed in a lot of ways. They eventually moved the art show upstairs for a couple years. It didn't work out. No one came.
Yeah.
But I had a good friend named Doug Chafee who was there, who's passed away many years ago now. And we'd hang out a lot. And there was just a lot of camaraderie. The 2 art buyers that I became good friends with, Larry Smith was the art buyer for Dungeons and Dragons magazine.
Okay.
And Peggy Cooper was on the product side. And they were always in the room, and they were looking for new talent. This was on TSR, of course.
Mhm.
And it was just a good opportunity to see them once a year and sort of just meet face to face and talk. And Larry always got new upcoming artists like me at that time to work for Dungeon Magazine as kind of a proving ground. Can you do good work? Can you make a deadline? Are you just a good person to work with?
Right.
And then they would eventually, you would build up to work maybe in Dragon, maybe get a half page or a quarter page, or then a full page. And then eventually, if your color work was good, you'd get a cover. I was fortunate enough to do, I think, 2 covers for Dungeon and 1 for Dragon. And on Peggy's side, she was doing the same thing. She would take, I believe, Larry's suggestions about art, and then next thing you know, you're doing 35 illustrations for Dark Sun,
right?
35 illustrations of interior black and white for Spelljammer, and eventually you might land a cover or 2. So that whole camaraderie between the art directors, the art staff, and the artists themselves in the room was amazing. I miss those days quite a bit and have fond memories of them.
So you haven't been you were at GenCon, like, I know you weren't there this year.
2014, Rich.
Is it that long? Is it that long?
It's been that long. Because of now, in the older days, there just weren't that many of us doing this kind of art. And now it's hundreds of thousands of us doing this kind of art. And it's kind of fun when I'm at a convention and a young kid now, I don't know, in his 20s will come up and show me a drawing that he's copied of one of my paintings, and it's just very humbling.
Wow.
So now you've got so many people that they had to go to a lottery or a judge system. I think they judge your art, so I just don't want to put myself through that. I mean, they could say no very easily. I don't match the current style of art. My work is a lot more grounded in the 90s than it is now, which has a different kind of feel to it.
Just give them the ogre you drew at the Long Island tabletop.
There you go.
You see, you wouldn't let me take pictures of that.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
It was pretty
awesome. I like
awesome.
to encourage young people as much as I can at those events. You know that.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a good aspect. The art changed. There was influences in art. I don't know if you know the name Michael Whalen or not. I don't know Michael, but he was a big influence on the book publishing industry. The brothers Hildebrand, I believe, were a big influence. And a lot of us tried to draw like them and then find our own style.
Right.
And then I think when Pathfinder came along, and I'm forgetting the artist's name, but it took and this isn't a diss on them, but it took more of a comic book cartoon kind of look to the art.
Yes, it did.
And that was different, so it sold, and now everyone wants to draw like that. And so I think, you look at my work and it has a dated kind of look because, again, it was very...
I feel like that would set you apart. I feel like that would be like an advantage as opposed to like a drawback.
Well,
as being, something that, catches your eye, as opposed to just blending in with every other art.
There was a resurgence in that type of art and everything during 4th edition of D&D because everything fell off, and everything jumped up that's when they had all the remakes and all the throwbacks to all the retro clones that they were doing, and that artwork jumped up again. That style of artwork, but now that with 5th edition, it's kind of it'll cycle back. I mean,
there is such like a push right now on like 90s nostalgia, like, but now might be the time.
Don't let him kid you. David can draw modern. He did. I've seen it. He just doesn't usually.
The art that I'm showing you behind me, I don't know if your viewers can see it very well, is definitely
you should hold it up for them
a bit, and I think it's matured a lot more than these paintings.
Yes.
And I think all artists will tell you that. As you practice your craft, you get better at your craft.
Yes.
And so my art has gone in completely different directions. I still, like I mentioned earlier, dabble in independent work. You see, I was a gamer before I was an artist. So I looked at my gaming was my hobby, and I started doing work in my hobby. So my hobby became my job.
Yeah.
And after I got out around 95 or so, I went back to it being my hobby. So I was doing work for advertising agencies and a variety of things, making money. But then I would find projects that I really liked, and I would do these projects. I just did one for a good friend of mine, Jay Libby, up at Dilly Bean Games. Sorry, Jay, if I mispronounced that. He's a small independent publisher. He's done a lot of publishing, but I gave him, I think, a pretty good cover for very low rate just because I wanted to do it.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Dark City Games, I'll do a shout out to them. This was before Steve Jackson got the rights back to the Fantasy Trip, which was Melee, Wizards, and then the Labyrinth.
Right.
He just did a huge Kickstarter on last year. That game had been out of publications for 35 years, and we were big fans of it. So some friends did a retro clone. We did like 5 covers for them for practically nothing, just because I was interested and wanted to do it because I love the game so much. So it's been fun to go back and do these things as a hobby because usually a publisher goes, do whatever you want. Back in the TSR days, it was like you'd show them a sketch, they'd change it. It was a collaboration.
Yeah.
So this freedom to do what I want and give them a quality product has been very refreshing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's just back to a hobby. As Rich knows, I'm a gamer.
Yes.
And always will be.
Yes.
Big geeky gamer.
We all are.
But not all artists were. I was a gamer who happened to draw, and a lot of my artist friends are artists first, and they do some gaming, but I mean, we game weekly at our house. It's
I think that's an advantage to you, David. That's my opinion. I think in a lot of cases.
I hope so. I don't know.
But let's jump over to our D&D tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Read 1 or 2 chapters ahead in any big campaign adventure you're currently running. Read up on the next session within a day of running it. I like that. I do like this. I think it's all because I think it's too easily forgotten. I've read through so many modules that you know it, but you don't often refresh yourself.
I've actually never run a module, so I can't speak to this, but I think I would need to. I couldn't imagine not reading like what's coming next so that I can remember, cite things you might want to like hook in there,
Right.
just to give a little tease, like looking back,
But it holds true even for your homebrew campaign, right? You think of it as writing 1 or 2 sessions ahead, but always leaving open ends. The problem with the homebrew is that you have to be prepared to handle those things that the players are going to do that you didn't realize you didn't actually account for.
If you're really playing sandbox,
right?
Which, I know a lot of D&D campaigns are very sandbox. I like sandbox, but I like to have a beginning, middle, and end, like every good story. I like to know where it could go, and then I let the players affect that. But I do have a general outline for it. So I think I'm of the type where you read the scenario all the way through to get a sense of what the story is,
sure,
and then read a little bit before you play.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's very true. I've got I'm going to have to show you some things here. So, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know about this game? This is a Call of Cthulhu scenario, and it was in 1981.
Wow.
And this is its hardback edition. This thing is 666 pages long.
Wow.
So light reading is what you're saying.
If you don't know that story from beginning to end,
wow,
and try to just run it by reading a chapter ahead, you will fail miserably.
Wow.
It is a huge. Larry DiTillo set out to write a scenario back in like 84, don't quote me on that would take you a year and a half to play if you met once a week, and he succeeded at it. So
wow.
in a particular case like that, I've read through this whole thing. I'm on my 3rd run through of it right now.
I
if you don't know that whole story, you're sunk.
That's true. It's true. There's actually a few of them like that. What was it called? The never mind. I'm not gonna remember. But it was a series of adventures released in Dungeon magazine over many issues, and then they put it all together into one thick book. And you really have to read through it once to understand the overlying plot, because that one goes into the other.
Interesting.
Before we jump in, we actually have a comment, David, and I think this question is for you from Sean. Dragon number 237 had a dragon featured Eldenser, who learned a spell that could transport his mind into any blade anywhere. If you could transport your mind into a pencil or brush, whose would it be?
Whose would it be?
Yeah.
Oh, let's go with Michelangelo.
Ooh.
Okay, that's
Because
interesting.
I was going way back.
Mm.
Any good artist has to know where art comes from. I was listening to Peter Weller, of all people,
Okay.
RoboCop and all that. He was giving a lecture I was watching on YouTube. And he says even in movies, it's a visual media. And so he's had art history because that was a visual media. That was the movies before movies were movies, and all the way back to cave paintings. So everything is connected all the way through.
Sure.
So if you study the classics, even if you're a cartoonist, you want to know how they draw. I mean, if you look at Picasso could draw extremely well, realistically, but yet he moved into cubism. That was his evolution as an artist. This whole idea of knowing where your roots are.
Right.
I always tell young cartoonists, do you know who a Chuck Jones is? Can you recognize a Hanna-Barbera drawn cartoon from a Disney cartoon, from a Warner Brothers studio cartoon, and
That's actually
know this stuff.
That's actually pretty. That's actually, you're right. I'm gonna, and I'm sorry.
I may be wrong.
No. But when you think about it, like even modern cartoons, right? Sometimes you could say, "Oh, look, it's the same artist that did this cartoon that's doing this cartoon."
Well,
Yes, we do it.
style.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a style there, and you're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, all right, I can see where they're all
To
together."
develop your own style, it's good to know other styles. If you go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, you'll see someone sitting there copying a painting. They're not copying the painting to sell it as a plagiarism. They're copying the painting to understand how a Flemish or a Dutch artist painted, so that they can take that information and put it into their own work to develop their own style. So when I say Michelangelo, he could paint damn well.
Yeah, well,
Carve like a
a little. I mean, he's okay, right?
He's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. But you know what? It goes for any type of art form, right? It goes right for music. You copy music so that you can figure out how to incorporate that into what you're doing. It goes for drawing. It goes for writing. You absolutely incorporate what you see here and how others write to incorporate their styles, not for plagiarism purposes, but for just for learning and evolution. I agree.
Learn your craft.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's the craft of painting, which is basically just manipulating material on a canvas.
Yep.
But then you've got the aesthetics of it. Well, why are you painting something, and what are you bringing to the painting? Why does the painting exist? Does it tell a story? Does it tell its own story? A bowl of fruit or some flowers doesn't interest me because it doesn't really tell me a story, unless there's a story involved in that somehow. Because visual media is storytelling media. It's how we communicate.
Yes. Where are we, Morgan?
We are at the third topic of the evening.
Okay.
Call of Cthulhu RPG.
I should lower the lights now, put on the candles and the spooky music.
So
What
David.
do you want to know?
So here's actually. So I know you don't play D&D very often, but maybe you can tell us what the difference is from D&D, and what's the appeal to this specific RPG? Is it just the genre, or is there more to it?
Long story, I guess.
We're ready for it.
We're
here for it.
We got some time.
So I grew up in Kentucky, and eventually I went to school, got my degree, and then I went to Louisville, Kentucky. And Louisville, Kentucky, back in the 70s and early 80s, had a big gaming community.
We should point out that Cthulhu was originally born in Kentucky also.
Was he born in Kentucky?
Probably.
Yes. I don't know. This is my neighbor, I think. Cthulhu came out in 81. Let's see. Hold on. I've got show and tell for you tonight. Here's the first edition. Box set. 1981. Sandy Peterson wrote this.
Nice.
Wow.
This grew out of RuneQuest, which I will show your audience too. This is my original RuneQuest book from.
If you look, the RuneQuest lettering is similar to the Call of Cthulhu lettering on the box sets you just showed us.
So this is basic
Similar
role playing.
styles.
If you know BRP.
Yes.
BRP is a really simple system because it's a percentile system. I can show somebody a character sheet and in 5 minutes have you up and running and playing the game. It's really that simple. But yet it's very rich in detail. it was a challenge to D&D back in the early days, and they've kind of grown in separate paths. Yet, Chaosium is one of the oldest continuously operating game companies in the world still.
Right.
So, what's the appeal of it? Well, the system was easy. We started playing D&D, but using RuneQuest rules, basically.
Okay.
And then Call of Cthulhu comes along, and I was a big horror fan. I mean, I grew up on Universal monster movies, and still to this day watch them. Watched the Hammer Mummy film with, just the other night on Turner Movie Classics, and that sense, that feel of mystery and detective and onion skins, where you have to peel away the story to get to the heart of the mystery, really was good. And D&D back in the day was kick down the door, kill the next monsters, and that was getting to be a little old. And so we gravitated towards that. I had a friend of mine named Roger in Louisville who introduced me to it, and then Roger started doing some work for TSR, and he went on to be the editor-in-chief for Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine, and then eventually took over the core AD&D books. I think he was one of the chief creative director for it. It was Roger E. Moore.
Yes.
So I fault Roger. Thank you, Roger. You got me on Call of Cthulhu, and I could tell you all about Roger's early Call of Cthulhu days. They're very, very creative, fun adventures, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. So we've been playing it pretty much nonstop since the 80s.
Very nice.
What's the differences? Well, Dungeons & Dragons is in its own world, or your world, or you're creating a world, and it's very divorced from the real world. Cthulhu was set square in the 1920s, so it's a familiar world, yet it's distant enough. It's not modern world, even though there is a modern Cthulhu game.
Right.
We tend to keep it in the 20s, so you get a sense of a feeling. You can't be what they call a murder hobo in Call of Cthulhu. You walk down the street carrying a shotgun, you're going to get questioned by the police, and the bad guy's there, you shoot him, and then you're wanted for murder. So you have to operate in a completely different mindset than in D&D, where you can start the bar fight and kill the dwarves, kill the elves, and keep the gold for ourselves. It just doesn't work that way in Cthulhu. So it makes you think more, and it makes you become a lot more subtle in your gaming. And I like that. I mean, it's not for everybody. I realize that, but I, along with millions of other people, really, really enjoyed that aspect.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know if you, Morgan, have you had any experience with the game?
No. I'm only just starting to branch away from D&D. So Call of Cthulhu is one of like those quintessential not D&D games that inevitably I'm sure I will play. I just need to find a game. I need to find a slot that I can fill.
So I have you ever played Shadows of Brimstone?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Because that's a very very Cthulhu-like game. Dungeon Delving. It's a board game though, and I played that, but you can go with an ongoing campaign. It actually has the feel of Hero Quest.
Yeah.
When you play it.
I know the game now.
And that's been kind of interesting. But David just recently in the emails going back and forth invited me to his once a year Halloween game.
Oh, awesome.
So I will be playing Call of Cthulhu for the first time.
Whoa,
in a
cool.
few weeks.
Yeah,
How
I'm glad to have
exciting.
you. We're all very excited. We've got a great group.
Nice.
One of the things I was telling Rich, Morgan, and viewers, that when we play, the whole idea is you want to get rid of the mundane world and enter into the Call of Cthulhu world. So you do that in a couple ways. You play by candlelight or gaslight, and so the room is dark. First of all, it's a horror game, but all that extra stuff just the real world goes away. And then we have sound effects, we have music. I have an extensive film library, and we play music. We almost like I score it, so I'll know when the cues are.
Yeah.
And then, like, we have sound effects for gunfire. Someone pulls the gun, shoots. If we hit the button, you get the sound. It's a game of mood.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that mood, then you lose it. That's why I will never run Call of Cthulhu at a convention, because you're in a big bright room with other people, and you just can't divorce from reality.
Right.
You can't maintain that mood.
What if I could get? Would you run it if I can make that mood happen for you?
What do you mean?
In
the game store?
No, at like Long Island Tabletop.
Oh yeah. Now Rich knows that I'm a guest up at Total Con up near Boston every year, which is in February. Wonderful gaming convention. I think they're on their 34th year, so
Wow.
if
Nice.
you are familiar. And there's a young gentleman who takes a conference room and puts track lighting around it and puts music and sound effects. And you close the door, and he keeps you in there for 4 hours. And there's a big sign on the door that if you knock on this door or open it, well, you'll have to pay the price, whatever that price is, because he doesn't want to ruin the mood.
Right.
So you have to have an enclosed space.
Huh.
And we've actually had people, because they're investigators, you understand, you might be playing a private investigator, so we'll have little flashlights at the table. So they're shining flashlights on their character sheet, just like they're going through a house, it's dark and mysterious with shining flashlights. So this whole mood, I've literally had people hold up their arms and have goosebumps. That's the point. That's the
cool.
fun. It's like going to a scary movie, being scared in a safe way. So this is what you strive for when you play this game. You can play D&D that way, can't you? Absolutely.
You can
play Ravenloft or any of these things.
Yes.
It's not like
Interesting.
Call of Cthulhu has the market corner on any of this style of play.
Probably encourages it more so than others.
Yeah. Again, and every game has its own kind of feel. We played Paranoia for a while, and just recently I was running. That's a perfect game because it's just crazy pandemonium. It's supposed to be a comedy, and we're just laughing at the table, and everyone around us is like looking at us like,
They're
why are you having so much fun? Because you play comedy, and then you can play that at the convention. So if you get into a good Cthulhu group, your game master, just like in any game, your game master is the person who is going to make or break any game, any system.
Everywhere, absolutely. I agree.
Absolutely. And then the players, too. The players have to stay involved. I've had too many groups where the DM is like giving it to them, and they're sitting there passively listening.
Yes.
And that's not it. It's a two-way street.
Right.
So it's kind of fun to play. I've had a 25-year-old playing a 64-year-old doctor of medicine. Who has a limp. And you're playing, you're role playing.
Yeah.
A role playing game. Play a role.
Right.
We'll start talking in voices like this because we're in cheerio England. Or bad accent. We call it community theater. It's bad community theater. But anything you can do to put them in that situation.
Yeah.
To make it better.
Yeah.
To make it different. So and the system, it's a percentile system, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So look, if I show you a character sheet and you have a 40% chance in climb, so now you know how good a climber you are.
Yep.
And you don't have to look at a book or a chart. You roll percentage dice. If you roll 40 or under, you can climb. Anything above that, you didn't climb. It's that simple. And so it's a good gateway game, especially things like Walking Dead and stuff like that. A lot of people really interested in horror.
Yeah.
And it's such an adaptable system.
Yeah.
So when you look at the sheet, you know what your stats are.
So
it's like you just get it.
Is it an adaptable system? I mean, you can sandbox that as well?
Yep. Well, I think you carried this in your store for a while, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Yes.
DRP.
Yep. DRP.
You name the genre, and I can play it.
Yes.
It's an all-encompassing thing.
That cover was on a blue book, and it was the hero system.
Yeah, they used that, didn't they? It's like the Leonardo da Vinci man thing. Yeah. With the down. Well, let me go back. We love Space 1889. The whole idea you're playing everything that Jules Verne and H.G. Wells wrote.
Yeah.
That kind of game, but it didn't like the system. So we used that. We used basic role playing.
Okay.
And it worked perfectly fine. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that my players knew this system really, really well. And when you got something that's working for you, if you play D20 D&D and it really, really works for you, then that's what you should play.
Right.
It's just that most of the people that I game with know BRP more.
That makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. So
I've always learned the systems of the games that I like, and because of it, I know a bunch of different systems, and I don't know the BRP system.
Well, if you're going to game it with us.
I will learn. So I'm going to learn it.
A friend of mine just the other day said, he said, this system really is invisible, isn't it? I go, that's the point. The system is not, you're not playing the system, you're playing the game. And the system keeps everybody honest with the dice rolls. The game is supposed to be so invisible to what you're doing that we'll play entire sessions, believe it or not. It's all just talking. They might roll the dice twice in a 4-hour session.
Right.
And just to see if they found something or saw something.
You know.
Sorry.
No. We're doing more. I know you don't play it, but I think 5e has introduced a lot more role playing over role playing.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
so,
I have a lot of friends who play D&D, and I talk to them, and I hear this too. So.
And you adamantly refuse to play. I know, I get it.
I don't adamantly refuse.
No, just kidding.
I will not play. No way. No. Very interestingly, I played a lot of it back in the day, and we still play games that are very similar to D&D. I just don't like. It's a preference thing. I'm not a fan of the system.
No, I get it. I understand.
And it's, I know I watch it from a distance. I see it change, and then 4 came along, and everyone hated it, and then some people loved it. I'm like, but at least with BRP, it stayed consistent since the late 70s, and they've just, added to it. So I'm comfortable. It's like an old pair of shoes.
Yes.
You're comfortable in it. So why change? Why change? So I sit down at a D&D table. I'm really lost. So you got to explain this to me. I don't know. What am I rolling now? D20, and I got to do this.
Recently, I'm teaching.
Funny, I work for TSR. Can you believe that?
You know what? I can. I absolutely can.
Out. I didn't tell them that I didn't play D&D back in the day. They all just assumed.
No, you were drawing for them and going home and playing Call of Cthulhu. Now they know. And there's not
and so was everyone at TSR. Like I said, the editor-in-chief of the magazine was guy introduced me to Cthulhu. I know that in their break room they pull out Steve Jackson's Melee Wizards and play it, and whatever game was up, they played in the lunchroom. They weren't always just playing D&D at TSR. Why? You want to know it's your business. It's your
absolutely.
Why don't you know what your competitors are doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Nice.
So anyway, that was my sales pitch on Cthulhu.
I'm in.
So it's this last topic. No, you don't have to sell it. I'm going to try it. So
I didn't mean that to be a sales pitch.
No, I know you. You don't worry about it. You're all good, David. It's all good. So this last topic will go by. Morgan brought it to us.
Yeah.
I titled it called "I Flunked Flank."
Yes.
So, for those of you who get the reference.
I'm old, Rich. I get the reference.
Flanking in gaming, D&D, Call of Cthulhu, etc. We looked it up. D&D doesn't have a specific flanking rule. It used to, right?
Well, they have a suggested.
They have a suggested
play style.
They do, but that takes place over tactical maps. But when you start doing theater of the mind, it then becomes the DM's discretion as to what does flanking mean and how does it work. You got to take circumstances into account. So, Morgan, you brought us the topic.
Yes.
You start us off.
So I play on Tuesdays in the game store, Legendary Realms, and I find that some of the DMs play with flanking rules, others don't play with flanking rules within the same multi-table campaign. So I personally, as a player, I've enjoyed playing with flanking rules, but that said, I don't miss it when it's not an option, and I just wanted to get other people's opinions as either DMs who run games, whether or not they enjoy using flanking rules, players, just to get an idea of what is it about flanking that you like, that you don't like. Do you think it has a place? Does it belong in the game? Why and why not?
So
you're talking RPGs, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So specifically in D&D 5e, the suggestion is that for two allies who are directly across from one another with an enemy between them, both of them in melee range, that they get advantage on attacks against that enemy. So that's specifically what D&D provides for flanking. And while I like the idea, I do think that there should be some tactical benefit to being in melee range with an ally of yours. I don't necessarily think that providing flat advantage is the way to provide that benefit. How do you both feel about that?
So, what the way I look at flanking is, like, again, in the tactical, depending on what you're trying to do, in a tactical world, in a map tactical world, it seems very, very easy, straightforward to follow the optional rule of saying, oh, well, I'm here and he's here, we should both get advantage because we're attacking this guy from two different angles. But having done, not full combat, but having done sparring a lot, you're constantly moving, and a round is 6 seconds.
6.
So in 6 seconds, I can make 2 or 3 complete circles around me to for my surroundings, to see who's attacking me or where people are coming from. I would think that a player character is experienced enough, at least at some level, to do the same. So, does that mean they never get an advantage? No, but I think the thief has certain things that it can do. I'll give you an example. We just had this last night. We found that every third round, a thief could, or every other round after the second, a thief could actually get a flanking attack of advantage because they could attack, right? Then their bonus action would be to disengage. Then the next round, their first bonus action, they would take the bonus action first to hide. Then they would attack, which would give them advantage because they're attacking from a hidden spot. If they were able to hide, right? Then the next round they would have to attack without advantage, disengage. So they could do this every other round, come in and out of combat.
Yeah.
And that to me is flanking. If all of a sudden we started giving everybody the advantage just because they were on the other side, then it really diminishes the rogue's ability to do what it was doing.
Well, I agree with you in that is an advantageous way to fight, right? I don't necessarily think that that's flanking or the best way to flank, because like the concept of flanking is to literally be at an enemy's rear with an ally engaged. Like that's the concept of flanking. And should flanking in any way provide a benefit is really my question. And it sounds like you don't agree.
No, I think it's circumstantial. I do think that in some cases it does provide a benefit. I think it can in some cases, but it would have to be situational.
David, is there a rule in Call of Cthulhu that would support something like this?
The new edition, 7th edition, they tweak some things. Interestingly enough, I know D&D brought in a bonus dice, correct? You roll a bonus dice or something?
When you roll with advantage, you roll 2 20-sided dice.
It's almost independently, and at the same time, the people at Chaosium did the same thing. They added bonus dice. So it's basically flanking in an RPG. Now, some people play with miniatures when they play Call of Cthulhu, and we just had a big discussion on a group that I'm with. I don't. I think as soon as you focus on a miniature, you've lost the mood. I want it to be theater of the mind. So when you're flanking, it's basically you're surrounded by people. So let's say I'm a private investigator, I'm investigating an alley, and 3 cultists jump out with clubs. Now I'm surrounded, and all 3 of them are hitting me, and the blows are coming really fast. What can I do against it? So the way this works is you have a couple options. When you go on your dexterity, whoever has the highest dex, who's faster, you can attack, you can try to do a maneuver, which is like grab your opponent, or you can run away, you can flee. Your opponent then gets to pick one of 3 options. They can attack back, or they can try to do a maneuver like grab the gun from your hand. I forget what I'm blocking on what the third one is. Anyway, the point is that you get like 1 attack per round, and they get 1 attack per round. So when I attack, you attack back, and we roll. Whoever rolls the highest success actually scores the hit.
Mm-hmm.
So the cultist hits me while I'm trying to hit him.
Right.
Now, because I've only got one attack, that's all I can do. The other two people then get to attack, but I don't get to do a maneuver or anything. So they just beat me. It's like clubs are hitting me.
Right.
So if I had 2 attacks per round, then I could do a maneuver or attack one as he attacks me, and then I could do the second one, but the third one gets a free hit on me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much flanking as are you outnumbered?
Mm-hmm.
And being outnumbered, they're flanking you, they're surrounding you.
Yeah.
Which is a bad situation to be in
Sure.
in real life just as much as in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cthulhu is a deadly game. A one gunshot can take out a normal character like that, instant. And especially if you roll a critical hit, you have like 14 hit points, and the gun just did 27 points of damage, because that's what guns in real life do. So you don't want to get in these situations in this game because it's lethal, and you don't want to get surrounded by 3 or 4, insane cultists bent on subduing you or beating you to death.
Right. Right.
So I really like this idea. It's not so much flanking as being outnumbered. In miniature combat games, like I mentioned, Melee Wizards, Steve Jackson fantasy trip game.
Yeah.
But you're playing miniatures on a hex map, and where you're facing is, so you get like a +4 from behind or a +2 from the side. So you want to outmaneuver your opponents, but that's more of a tactical combat game with role-playing game elements on top of it. I know Rich plays Hero Quest, and so do I.
Yeah.
Old game from back in the day. And you don't really get pluses or bonuses there, but it's pretty easy because it's on squares. Where if you're surrounding someone, then you get bonuses. So I think that's kind of how I does D&D have anything like what I described?
So they kind of do. So one of the things I pulled up while you were talking was there's another reason why I think it's situational, and if everybody was able to just get to 2 sides of the monster and get advantage, you diminish things like the kobolds have
absolutely
pack tactics. So the pack tactics,
a skill, right?
Yes, yeah. So all kobolds, the kobold has advantage on an attack roll against a creature, regardless of where it's standing. Against a creature if at least one of the kobold's allies is within 5 feet of the creature and the ally isn't incapacitated. So if 2 kobolds are attacking one person, they can work in concert, and that's what pack tactics is about working together, and they gain advantage on attacks.
It's modeling a real-world situation.
Correct. Correct. And not everybody has it because not everybody works together. Like when I was talking about sparring, and you spar against more than one person, there's they don't work together because they're not looking to work together because they don't know how. So that's different than 2 people that are working together. That's much harder to face.
Well, it's interesting. So I in thinking about this idea, I was listening to looking up other people's opinions, and the common complaint is that it diminishes the benefits that class abilities provide.
Right.
In that the rogue has the sneak attack bonus from being, if you're a swashbuckler, with attacking with an ally. So it provides that benefit without a cost. Whereas like each of the classes generally provide some sort of bonus like advantage when in combat. And so one of the complaints I heard specifically was that flanking rules in D&D 5e specifically diminish the role playing that people do at the table, because it's easy to just think, oh, I'll just circumnavigate this bad guy and now we'll have advantage on the roll, instead of coming up with an idea, okay, I'm gonna try and shove him and knock him prone, and then we'll all have advantage on the rolls.
Right.
It takes away the creative fun ways that combat stays engaging.
Yes.
You know, so that I thought was probably the biggest takeaway I took.
I thought Steve was very good at doing that type of stuff, knocking them down for everybody, not just going to the back. You know,
Yeah.
trying different things with his class. I think he explored. He was very good.
Interestingly enough, because most of the games I play do not have classes, so
Yeah.
they're classless games.
They have no class.
Classless systems. So you have a set of skills in like a Call of Cthulhu or basic role playing, and it's you pick like private investigator, so that gives you a few skills that you can put points in because you're a private investigator. You would know, but then the rest of the skills go wherever you want.
Yeah.
And so there's no real class there. You design the character just like a writer is writing a character.
Sure.
It's just there's a lot of RPGs out there where you don't really have a specific class. You may have a template that you move more towards based on how you place your skills, but that doesn't mean that you're anything specific.
I've seen that.
You know, so
it's fascinating. I mean, you sound like me, both of you. I love to get systems and read them and kind of understand them and look. And you saw Wendy's has a role-playing game now?
Yes, it's
Wait,
all over all the
what?
feeds.
I can't wait to read through this
What?
thing.
It's
like
called
97 pages
It's
long.
Feasts and Legends.
No way.
Yes.
It's insane.
No
gotta look this
way.
up.
Oh
What a
my god,
marketing
this is
ploy.
brilliant.
Yeah, it came across my feeds literally today.
No way.
So
Well, I think it was just a day, and it's like,
Yeah.
you mean,
Okay,
the French
wait,
Fried
like,
King or something gets
let's
like a
cancel
hot
our
sauce
weekend
that
plans.
spews fire.
That's amazing.
Viewers should Google search this.
Wow.
actual
Wow.
plot.
Talk about like marketing for
showing-
like a niche group.
yeah, I'm showing Morgan now the
That's
article.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's,
That's so
it's
fun.
It's pretty cool.
It's probably brilliant. I just don't know. I had downloaded it, so it got me.
So let's all right, let's move on.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move into the wrap up
Yeah.
here. So you this is you think.
This is me thing.
This is what you like.
It's time for what we are. What are we? David, we're going to start with you. What have you been watching, reading, or listening to?
Oh my gosh. Well, as Rich knows, we had a storm here in June, and a tree actually came into our house, and I spent my entire summer.
Didn't even knock, by the way.
fixed,
It just came in.
Rude.
Yeah,
What's
rude.
that?
I said the tree didn't even knock. It just came in.
Yeah, it was crazy, huh? No one was hurt, but
Thank God.
so I haven't read or looked at anything. I actually just started watching Dark Crystal on
Cool.
Netflix. That's the one thing that I finally just last week started to do. So
Awesome.
You'll like it.
so far,
Thumbs up so far. Cool.
Nice.
How about you? What are you watching, reading, or listening to?
What am I I haven't really been watching too much
Okay.
recently, but I have been revisiting Michael J. Sullivan's books, the Rhaenyra Chronicles.
Okay.
I'm on book 3. Again,
Mm.
I like the characters, and since I've been running through writing up some stuff, I haven't been able to listen to anything else because now I'm working on the Long Island Tabletop stuff, their Twitch channel and their YouTube channel, and I'm working on putting shows together for that. So that's been taking up all my extra time. No TV for me.
it was the
Yeah.
time.
I just started watching Carnival Row on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
It's with Cara Delevingne and Orlando Bloom. It takes
Bloom.
place in a world where like the Feywilds have started to become like immersed in the mundane world.
Were you talking about this last week too?
I was
It's a-
not. I
it's a
think our
steampunk
guest
kind of
was.
feel to it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it does. It's very cool. I'm really
Metzger.
enjoying it.
Kim was talking
Yeah.
about it. Okay.
It's very entertaining. It's very entertaining. So far, I haven't gotten almost halfway. Maybe I'm approaching that point now, and I definitely find myself eager to watch the next episode. So check that out.
Of course, it's
Carnival Row.
Halloween month, so
Yes.
I'm watching Bride of Frankenstein for the 20,000th time.
Yes, cool.
I just can't get enough of old horror movies.
Yeah, I'm sure Smurfy is enjoying herself immensely. She's a huge horror fan.
Yes.
Huge
So
horror
this
fan.
is her month.
Yes, it is.
All right, we'll give it to her.
All right, David. So here we go. We're gonna put you on the spot.
Okay,
Uh,
lightning round.
What?
Okay.
What?
Lightning round. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. What didn't you say no to?
What do I what?
What didn't you say no to?
What did I say no to?
What
Yeah.
didn't you say no to?
What didn't I say no to? I don't know.
Yeah, double
better-
negatives here. Here
For
we go.
better or worse?
I didn't say no?
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
I
what-
didn't say no to doing this podcast or the streams.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You owe me. How much you paying me now, Rich?
I'm showing up to your game.
Am I too close, by the way?
No. No, that's how everybody keeps an eye on us.
Keeping an eye on you. All right.
Actually, I was very happy when you said yes.
Yeah.
I was excited.
Very cool.
I'm honored. Thank you very much for having me.
No, this
I was
was
so
fun.
glad.
More questions, Morgan?
That's it.
That was it.
Oh, I was expecting
Just the
a lot.
one.
It's our.
Color.
The big
Butterfly
question.
names, you know.
What's your favorite color?
Butterfly names.
Green,
I
no
love
way,
it.
purple.
Oh, what's the unladen speed? What's the air velocity of an unladen swallow?
Yes.
Oh, the Europeans.
You European or what is the other one?
I don't know that. African or European?
Yeah. So good.
Don't get me started. I cannot watch that movie with my wife because she won't. She'll say, "Shut up." I'm like quoting the
That's so funny.
So
movies that shaped us. You know, I don't know how much time we have, but I mean, one of the best fantasy movies ever made for years and years and years. I mean, what else did we have? You know,
we didn't
these
have anything.
horrible movies from the '80s.
Yeah.
Excalibur and Monty Python and Holy Grail were the two best.
Yes. Yes. So here we are, David. Would you like to tell everybody where they can find you? Not
right
your
here.
not your address.
Yes,
Not your
keep
home
that to
address,
yourself.
but like
No matter where you go, there you are, right? We're talking about Rapunzel again.
that's right.
So it's davidomiller.com. My name is David Miller, but my middle name it starts with an O. And if you try to look up David Miller, I think there's 33,000 David Millers in the country.
Yes,
Wow.
there's a
I think
lot.
That's true. So if you look up David O. Miller, artist, you'll find me pretty easily. And in fact, a lot of people thought my name was O. Miller. They thought I was an Irish-German guy.
Okay, sure.
It's David
Oh, Miller. I thought it was the last name.
O. Miller.
Yeah.
No. It's not O apostrophe Miller.
All right.
No.
Well, now we
It's
know.
O
how they
period
define it.
Miller.
Mm.
And my horribly outdated website. I need to find an 18-year-old. Now I'll be getting all kinds of emails. No.
Yeah.
Redo my website.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. So, if you watching us now would like us to review something, you can reach out to us by email at social media at lrhobbies.com, or you can leave a comment. Let us know what you're interested in seeing.
You know, we could review. We didn't even think about it. We could review the Dresden Files board game.
We absolutely could, and I
Yeah.
think we should, because I would love to get my hands on it and play it again.
Sure, absolutely. We could do that. Let's put that in for next week.
All right, cool.
All right, we can talk about it because we did play that.
Yes.
The Octagon. Oh, this is still you. I'm sorry. It says moi.
It does. So the Octagon Gaming Convention is coming up. It's going to be held at the Bethpage Library, October 19th and 20th. The event is free. Saturday, it's going to run from 9 to 5. Sunday, it's going to run 10 to 4 o'clock.
That's right. And my daughter will be running games for kids.
Cool.
She's here somewhere. I guess not. Oh well.
Uh,
She's somewhere.
She's in the ether.
She's in the ether. All right, so keep an eye out for new programming over at the Long Island Tabletop Twitch and YouTube channel. There's a D&D stream coming soon, and there's a GM advice and rules discussion stream coming soon also.
Cool.
More details as those fill in.
Sure.
Links for all the subjects we covered tonight are in the video description, including a link to David O'Miller's website. It is in our description, so click it, visit him, and check it out.
Yeah. If you liked today's video and the topics that we covered, like it, subscribe, hit the bell so you get our notifications.
That's right. And if you'd like to be a guest on the Weekly Word, direct DM me. Direct message me on Twitter at LRTerrain or email me directly at rich.parla@lrhobbies.com. We are currently booking October. Believe it or not, I don't have a guest past next week, but we'll remedy that sometime
I'm sure
next
we will.
week.
And that concludes our wrap-up. As always,
Morgan,
you can...
Rich, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed the last hour.
Oh, I'm so glad you did.
It was a pleasure, Dave.
It really was so much
Pleasure
fun.
was all mine.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see it again. We'll I'll definitely see you soon. So
You got it, man. You better. Don't kick out on me, man.
Yeah.
No.
You got a spot.
no, I checked my calendar. I'm free, so why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll have a good time.
Cool. Very
So
cool.
you can find us on Twitch at no, you can't. You can find us on Twitter at LR Terrain, on Instagram at Legendary Realms Games, on our Patreon at patreon.com/theweeklyword.
We have a patron.
We do have a patron. Thank you very much, patron.
I think I know who
You're
it
a
is. too.
saint.
All right.
I'm Morgan West.
And I'm Rich Parla. And
And
David.
David Miller.
There you go. David O. Miller,
Yes.
Oh, who's he?
the Irish non-Irish
Is
artist.
he here? He's here.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. Good night.
Take care. Until next week.